You are listening to Slightly Sauced.
Hey everybody, welcome to Slightly Sauced. My name's John.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Jake.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Derek.
Arguably more successful than the time we tried to do it alphabetically.
I just went for it. I knew no one was
Yeah.
going to go.
No, it's good. We got this. It's cool.
I
Fuck,
thought
you think
were
we'd be
supposed to
good at
go
this by
next.
now, right? What is this, episode 208 or something? At 207? Yeah, you think we'd be good at it by now? Hey, we're back
No.
from a long-ass hiatus. We've been gone for kind of a long time. When was the last show released? Like 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
April 5th.
Okay, that's a while ago. We got a good excuse, though. We were all out of the country, so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we talk about being out of the country, I think we got an email.
It's Ernie. Ernie. He likes dragons. Ernie. It's Ernie. Ernie. Sending human skin to people. It's Ernie. 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 And Bert.
Ernie says, Dear Kayla. You get 2 deers, Kayla. You
I
rate
am
highly.
double deer. Oh,
Double
no,
deer.
wait, that was just double D. Oh, my bad.
You're double D. Yeah.
Maybe she's actually just a deer.
Oh,
You don't know?
Like
You've
a
never seen her?
doe,
Yeah.
a female deer.
a ray, a drop of golden sun.
Okay, let's stop this. Ernie says, it was such a delight when you reached out to me directly. I cannot begin to describe how touched I was. I will be happy to give a report on what John thought would be interesting to you from the previous episode. He was just trying to promote his own YouTube channel. If you watch his videos, he's all like, ooh, look at me. I can make end tables out of pallets and I have this perfectly sculpted facial hair too. I'm not sure if it's really your cup of tea, Kayla, or a cup of apple cider, if you will. You know, I used to know exactly when you people would record a new episode so that I could always get my contribution in on time. Now it seems like just a crapshoot. I guess I'll just have to refrain from procrastination and send off my email on the same day that the show drops into my feed. I certainly wouldn't want anyone out there to not have my thoughts on hand for the subject at hand. Good day, Ernie.
If it's any consolation, Ernie, we don't know when we're recording next. So there you
That's
go.
true. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 weeks after the previous one.
And sometimes we record them back to back. So it's literally impossible for you to send us an email in the meantime.
Yep. You kind of gonna... You'll fuck it up if you try.
But we'll always read them.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. For the record, Kayla, the thing that I was actually saying that you would enjoy from the previous episode that you weren't on, aside from my YouTube videos, which you should totally watch, and my perfectly sculpted facial hair, was Discogs. And then I subsequently found out that you were already using Discogs. You knew about it long before I did. You were ahead of the curve, so there would have been nothing for you to find out about anyway.
Bummer.
So it was good that you stayed home. You may as well have not have been on the show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good.
My
seriously, check out-
current Discogs valuation for my
Oh, are we
record
comparing?
collection, my
Okay.
minimum valuation is $1,939, and my maximum valuation is $5,104.
That's a bit of a spread. Holy
Right?
shit. That's crazy.
That's several $1,000s.
Let's see here. What's mine? My
$50
minimum
bucks.
valuation is $2,008.29, and my maximum valuation is $5,310.52. So we're about the same.
And that is not including the newest albums in my possession, which are 3 newly released Tragically Hip albums that just got dropped.
You haven't scanned them yet?
No, I have not. I got them while we were in Ireland, and
What hip albums are they that you got recently?
I have, and I'm most excited about Live Between Us, which is one of their live albums. It is by far my favorite album. I also got Trouble at the Hen House, and the third was I just bought one off of Discogs, so I can't remember what the heck I bought. I bought an original pressing of the Up to Here album.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Did you say you bought those in Ireland, or you just got they shipped to you? And,
shipped from, so they just got pressed in Burlington, the new vinyl factory, I guess, that opened in Burlington.
Oh, yeah, I saw an
Right
article
off their
about that.
press, they did 3 hip albums. And so I had pre-ordered them on Amazon, but they shipped the day that I actually left.
I did wander into a record store while we were in the UK. I think it was in London, and I subsequently realized that I don't actually know enough to know what I could get there that I couldn't get at home, right? So it was like, anything with Discogs, especially anything that I can get there, I could get from home. So there was no point in bringing it home through my luggage and shit like that. But
The one thing I found in using Discogs, the third album, by the way, was Day for Night. But the one thing that I have found with Discogs is that the European releases of albums tend to have higher valuations.
that's true.
Probably because you have to buy them with frickin' pounds.
They're literally worth more.
Yep, pretty much. Hey, but before we talk about Ireland, Europe, Tyler, what's the name of that segment that we're supposed to be doing?
So coincidentally enough, the brand new segment that we have for the show is called "Where the Hell Have You All Been?"
Oh,
So
Is that the
I
thing?
suppose we'll just use that as a topic and talk about where we've been.
okay, fair enough.
Because
So where the hell have you been,
Because I'm
Tyler?
sure we're too lazy to come up with anything else. Yeah. So we have all been in Europe last couple weeks.
Why
I guess-
were we in Europe, Tyler?
So I was getting married in Ireland.
Woo!
Yay!
I don't know why you guys were there, but
Whoa.
Your wife likes us better.
I see.
Ah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much I can really talk about my own wedding. I guess we went there.
Oh, we're going to talk about your wedding plenty, dude.
Yeah. But I mean,
It's kind of the reason that we were there.
sure. But what I'm saying is it's only one day. You guys were there for quite some time before and afterwards as well, doing some touring around. So I'm sure you guys have a lot to say as well.
And to be fair, I got in there fairly early because I didn't want to miss the illustrious appointment at the Debonair suit hire.
Yes. I also got there early, too, because of the Debonair suit hire.
They should pay us a royalty for mentioning them so much.
That's right. Free advertising and all that jazz. If you're in, the problem is I can't remember the name of the town that they're in. And even if I could remember it, I can't pronounce
Was it
So
Magrafelt?
It is, but I was
Okay.
going to say none of us are going to be able to pronounce
there you
that
go.
right.
If you're in Margrafeld,
Nope.
No.
then you should go to the Debonair suit for hire.
Can I say too that I'm sure it doesn't come across that way to them, but it seems so extra classy to us when
Yeah.
they say like
for sure.
suit hire or
Pre-booked hires only.
yeah
Or when
car
you're walking
hire
through the
or
city
to let
and there's
or
like
whatever.
an apartment to let.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It just seems so much, I don't know, higher
It
class.
does. It's more
Or the
formal.
big, the real estate signs where they've made a transaction and the sign is just plastered with "Agreed." The other one that I liked was one that had clearly also been let or rented, I guess, and the big sign was "Too late."
Too late. You should have gotten in earlier, sucker.
What was the name for the real estate over there? What did they call it? It was like estate something.
Oh, well, there's no real estate agents. They're estate agents, right?
Oh, I see.
Which
Okay.
makes you think, I mean, why do we say real estate? Is the real in real estate like real as the antithesis to fake, or does it mean something else? Is real estate a separate? I don't
And
know
furthermore,
why
why
we say
is-
real estate and why they say estate.
Why is Realtor the name for someone that shows you and might sell you a house?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense either, right? And because here, an estate is like a big house or a house with land, and that doesn't seem to be the case, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, hang on. I just had the answer.
Maybe
Okay,
it's
too.
coming from the times when they didn't have land, period, except for the really rich. So now everyone, since they own their house, it's an estate.
So real is an adjective from the early 14th century meaning real, actually existing, or true.
Real land.
In the mid
So
15th
it's a true
century,
house.
it slightly changes meaning to relating to things such as property. So I suppose, according to the source, real means existing, true as per the Latin origin, but even later the meaning of relating to things seems to derive from the same root through French. I don't know.
Whatever. It's a difference, and there's lots of those little vocabulary differences. But you're right. Just walking around in different cities in the UK, you see these things on signs, and it seems classier, and that's silly, of course. but I think that goes along with the whole kind of stereotype that North Americans tend to have about people from the UK, specifically people from Great Britain, but, in general, people from the UK, they seem classier and more well-refined than we do, and that's probably not true or fair.
It's the
Except
accent,
for the
right?
lawyers. The lawyers are solicitors, and here it's like if you're solicited, that means they're going to have sex with you
Well,
for
but there's
money.
a difference, right? Because in the UK, you have a solicitor and you have a counselor, right? Or
And I believe a
And
barrister.
barrister.
a
Yeah.
barrister. Sorry, a solicitor and a barrister. They're two completely different
Is
functions.
that the guy that carries the mace?
One, I can't remember what the specific differences are.
I think it's the type of law that they practice.
But you can get both for the same court case.
Okay, so Tyler, whereabouts did you get married in the world?
Oh, for God's sake! I'd have to look at a map.
It was in the
hold
Republic
on.
of Ireland.
Barristers
No,
can be distinguished because they wear a wig and gown in court.
Right, because they have
that's
some other,
not
and they're the only ones that can address
helpful.
the.
They work at higher levels of the court.
Yeah, they're the only ones
okay,
that can
so they're
address
just
the
like
the
special
court. Right?
judges. All right.
Sorry, coming back to real estate for a second.
Yes.
Real property historically is property that any legal action regarding to it was in rem, that is on the matter itself. This was opposed to personal property in which the action would be in personam, that is on a mere physical object. There you go.
That doesn't clear it up at all, I gotta say.
I prefer real versus fake.
Yeah, I'm going with that. Some guy tried to sell a fake bridge once, and now there's real estate.
I'm not falling for that one again.
Nope, nope.
It's,
This
it's
is
like the
real
castle that
estate.
you knew that was going to fall into the swamp.
That's right. Exactly. So, I guess we should probably give some context. We all were, I guess, for the first week, if this is true, we were all in Belfast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the exception of folks who are not on the podcast.
Well, they don't matter. They're not on the podcast. That's like asking where Ernie was for the week while we were gone.
Right,
In
so-
I assume not
Alberta.
Belfast.
So for about the first, what was that, 5 days or so?
Yeah.
We were in Belfast, and then we went a little bit more north. And again, I'm not going to say any names, partly because we went through a lot of them, and mostly because I can't pronounce them all.
Yeah.
So
Like an hour north of Belfast-ish.
yeah, more or less. So that's where I was married, and then we proceeded from there down south, right to the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland for the reception.
Which really isn't much of a border, much like the border between, well, actually, it's looser than the border between Canada and the United States because, I mean, it's more like the border between provinces, really. There was sort of a sign,
And a toll.
but there wasn't like a, oh, yeah, it's true. I guess it was a toll. So, but there
Well,
wasn't
not,
like
not
a
on the way to the
crossing.
reception. It was a bridge.
Yeah. Like,
I'm
what I
pretty sure
mean
it
to
was
say
just
is it's
called
not like
the
it's a
troll bridge.
secured border or anything, you know?
Well, and I guess
But
part of
they're
that
also
is
part of the EU.
the freedom of travel within the EU, like Derek was saying.
So actually, it goes back even further than that. Well, maybe sort of. So there is that for sure. But there's also the Good Friday Agreement and the peace accord, basically guarantee that there would be no hard border between the two.
Oh, okay. So it's part of that.
Yeah.
I
So which
see.
is why now with Brexit happening, with them leaving the EU, if they do put up a hard border, it's going to trigger all sorts of problems. And that's why
Right,
the
which
European
is-
Union has already come out to say that they won't. I can't remember how exactly they worded it, but essentially they're going to acknowledge or recognize Ireland as one unified country if they put up a hard border.
But then there's also talk that may in turn lead to a reunification of the North and South of Ireland so that one or the other can stay in the European Union versus staying with Great Britain or whatever, right? Like, that gets complicated too.
And when Jake and I, after we left the island of Ireland, we went to Scotland and we're chatting with folks in Scotland, and we're saying, as part of Brexit, because Scotland is considered part of the UK, that might trigger a referendum again in Scotland around independence.
Right, which they already had a referendum around independence, correct?
That was, what, last year or the year before?
Yep, and it was very
2014,
close.
I believe.
Yeah. But, I mean, the politics in this part of the world are really confusing, and I'm interested in them, but I really didn't. Like, I knew of sort of the situation in Ireland, but I didn't know about it, and I still don't know about it, right? I mean, spend a week and go to some museums and stuff, but it's crazy how in depth it is, even down to little tiny things. Like we noticed in the hotel in Belfast one night, somebody was paying the bartender and had banknotes that said Scotland on them, and I was confused. So I asked, and I think I asked you, Tyler, and you told me that there are, and we later found out that when you're in Northern Ireland, you're paying for everything with the British pound as opposed to with a euro, because Britain is special and magical in the Eurozone for some reason. And everybody typically uses Bank of England banknotes, but there are also banknotes that are printed by Bank of Scotland and banknotes that are printed by Ulster, which is another name for Ireland, apparently, for reasons I don't understand.
I believe it's just the Northern Province.
Those are the same as the British pound, except when they're not.
So, the currency situation is a little weird, but it goes back to the fact that the United Kingdom is really a collection of multiple countries, which is all sorts of confusing.
Yeah.
It's
the Bank of England
still an empire, right?
I don't know. Well, I don't know what the classification is in terms of that. But the Bank of England prints the notes for Britain, which is, most of Britain, I suppose. So essentially England, Wales, and Scotland, although as you pointed out, I think Scotland also has the ability to print their own banknotes.
Does Wales print their own banknotes?
I don't believe so.
Because I got Irish banknotes and I saw Scottish banknotes, but I did not see any Welsh banknotes. Is that right? Conjugation Welsh? I think that's how you say it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in Northern Ireland, they have basically retail banks that can print their own notes. So they're basically promissory notes. So they say pounds on them. They're effectively pounds. You may or may not be able to use them outside of the country. But just because the further away you go from the bank, the less the bank is recognized and the less value that note carries, right?
Right. So a full or a proper British pound, for lack of a better word, works in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, but a pound that was printed in one of those three may or may not work in the other parts of the United Kingdom.
Or the rest of the world, for that matter.
Or the rest of the world, right. You might not be recognized. And I thought I heard Jake say that he found that the Scottish or the Irish pound, one or the other, was actually worth lesser at a currency exchange as well. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Yeah,
Sterling.
When I came back, we converted some money, and that is the case.
Speaking of the currency conversion, holy shitballs. It's like 1.8 or something, or 1.78 or something when I did all my banking after the trip. Wow, that's a hell of a Great Canadian peso really doesn't take you very far in that part of the world. God damn.
Well, it didn't
That's
help
brutal.
that our dollar took quite a hit while we were over there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough.
The other thing that's confusing to us anyway, is that all the prices for everything over there already have tax in, right?
Which, may I say, I
You mean
really
brilliant.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
I say confusing because it makes comparisons difficult. So if you look at something and it's £10 there and $10 here, you have to factor in the fact that you're going to pay 13% tax on that $10. But what you're not really factoring in is that £10 also already includes 20% tax.
Oh, I see. So it's not like double. It's double less the 13% or whatever. The other thing that I thought was interesting too when you're talking money is, at least while I was in Northern Ireland, I didn't see anything about tipping, and sort of the advice that Tyler gave was that if you're in a restaurant or bar or whatever, tipping is appreciated, but it's not required. It's not expected. Whereas when later on in the trip, Steph and I went to London, England, and we actually had to look around and do a little Googling about this, because it's sort of the same except kind of not. You can tip, and it's often expected, apparently, but a lot of places build a service charge onto your bill that is effectively already a tip. So when you get a bill in a restaurant in London, if it has a service charge on it, you don't have to worry about it. You walk away just like in Ireland. It's already dealt with. Although you do have the legal right to dispute the service charge and have it removed from your bill, although you'd have to be some kind of an asshole to go through that hassle. But if there is no service charge on the bill, you do have the choice of whether to tip. And what I didn't get to the bottom of was if wait staff in England, or at least in London anyway, rely on tips the same way that they do here. Like, as if, are you being a dick if you don't? I'm not sure. I still don't understand it, because most places just put a service charge.
I don't think that's the case. Again, I haven't really looked into it, but I've always been under the impression that they do make the correct minimum wage, if you want to think of it that way,
Right.
at a minimum.
Right. which is what everybody should make. So, that. But
Everyone should just make a living wage. How about that?
yeah, that'd be a good way to go.
Hey, Ontario's trying that.
And boy, howdy, are we going to talk about that, but not today.
Yeah,
Okay,
the other thing before we get off that subject entirely is that I know if you were paying by credit card, I don't think I saw a single machine that I used, like in a restaurant or anything, that had an option to add a tip after the fact. So you always had to either carry cash or you had to do it beforehand, which I think is fairly awkward can I put an additional this on the bill?
And a lot of places seemed really proud of and encouraging to use their contactless, the tap pay, too, everywhere. I don't know if that's just a thing that they've recently rolled out and they're really trying to push or whatever, but I noticed a lot of places were like, use contactless, it's faster. And that's not a thing that you usually see here. Perhaps we've had it longer or something. I'm not sure.
Looping back slightly to talking about a living wage versus minimum wage, I actually Googled it because I was curious, because one of Anya's siblings mentioned what her hourly wage was. And I was like, that seems absurd because that is no money at all. And it turns out that the minimum wage for adults who are ages 18 to 20 is £5.13. And I don't know
doesn't
about
seem like enough.
No.
So about $10. That's about equal to us, right?
Well,
But
yeah,
they're not
but
paying
that might work.
things that way.
Right. If you're in Northern Ireland, perhaps that works, but we noticed that London was significantly more expensive than Northern Ireland. If you were in London, that's not enough. Not even close.
But you have the same problem with Toronto and any big city.
I guess you're
But
right.
if you look at it in terms of the cost of maybe like a beer, like £5.13 would get you probably 2 beers. They're like £3 ish.
Little shy of 2
$3.60
Yeah.
was I found
And here in Canada, you can probably get a pint for what, £5 or $5 Canadian dollars if
Plus
it's like
tax,
a
plus a tip.
sale plus tax plus tip.
So probably 7.
And our minimum wage is $11.25.
It's $11.40 if you're 18 or older.
18 or older.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying then is like by the metric of how much beer you can buy, their minimum wage isn't even close to what it ought to be.
No, it is. You can buy 2 beers.
Oh, I see. Oh, so it's correct. Oh, God, this conversion is complicated. It's almost as bad as time zones.
And that's the other
I
thing
got
is you
so
can't even
fucked up heading back.
you can't even really directly compare it. You can't say like, okay, this thing cost me £10, so doing the conversion, that's $17 and change plus minus tax, blah, blah, blah. You can't even do that because it doesn't. The currency exchanges change so quickly that calculation could be completely backwards the next day, right?
Yeah, towards the beginning of the trip, I think the currency exchange was something like $1.75 Canadian is £1 British. But towards the end, it was like $1.81 or $1.82 Canadian. So we lost like 7 or 8 cents over the course of the couple of weeks we were there.
So when we were over there, not this time, but the previous time we went over for Christmas, I think the exchange at that point was $1.92 per pound. When Brexit happened, it fell to $1.60-ish. And then, like you said, it was back up to about $1.70 something while you guys were there.
Yeah, that's rough. So not only did you get to pay for a wedding, you get to pay for a wedding in crazy currency where your money doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's why we paid off a lot of it when the currency was not very good. Worked in our favor. So, yeah. So by the time we got there, it was basically, I don't think we really had much left to finish off.
Well,
so.
that's good. So what'd you guys think of Belfast? We spent a fair bit of time there.
It was pretty awesome.
So I've been to Belfast a couple of times, but this is the first time that I actually stayed downtown and had enough time to tour around and stuff like that. It was good. I mean, there's definitely enough stuff to see for a couple of days there. I don't know that as a tourist, it's as nice of a town, nice of a city as like, Dublin is a super touristy city, so I'm not really sure that's a good comparison either.
Well, and I met a lot of people from Belfast that spoke down about Dublin too, about how commercialized and how touristy it was. They wanted no part of it. But as a tourist, of course, you want some of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Belfast actually reminds me a lot of Hamilton in the sense that
I could see that.
historically,
definitely.
downtown Hamilton,
It's a
it's
blue-collar
had-
working
yeah,
town for
blue-collar
sure.
working town. It's
Yeah.
had a rough go, but you have, and I don't necessarily want to call it what I think it is, but you do have people who are moving in and changing the scene. So you have more modern
Were you
shops.
looking for the word gentrification
I
or no?
wasn't looking for it. I was actively sidestepping it.
Okay.
And
Why? Like, do you see... Now, hang on, though. I want to get into it a little, even though you don't. So
Yeah.
I'm going to needle you. Do you see that kind of gentrification as a positive or a negative thing? I wonder.
I don't see it as either. I see it just as
Okay.
the changing dynamics of, I don't like
Well, yeah,
using
neighborhoods
terms like
change.
gentrification because gentrification historically means I think people are displaced. And I don't
I would agree.
think,
Gentrification comes with a negative
Yes.
spin. There's the word gentrification is not a positive word, but the effects of it can be depending on who you are and where you are.
Well, and I think in the case of Belfast, at least from my personal perspective, it's I don't know if it's that, like, that's more, to me, that's more of a social change, which there is definitely some of that happening, but I think it's as a result of the overall economic change that's happening there.
and that's what I'm
So
thinking
that's a
about
thing-
Hamilton as well.
That's the thing that I wasn't really able to put my finger on the economic pulse when I was there. I noticed, and I remember remarking to Steph at some point, that there didn't seem to be enough young people in Belfast. For some reason, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I wasn't sure if that was just my bias going in because I know that Anya has left the country and that she had said that a lot of her friends had left the country. Like, I know quite a few Irish people, Anya, as well as other people that I've worked with in the past, who talk about leaving the country. So I don't know if I came in with that bias, but it just felt like there were a lot of older people walking around the city and not a lot of people our age or younger. And that was weird to me.
I felt like there was a ton of people younger with kids.
Yeah, that too. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm trying to find demographics for the city.
Like, I know a little while ago, and this is the other thing, is that in media you often see Ireland just referred to as a bloc, at least for sort of things that are not politically related. So I know a little while ago, Ireland, I'm going to say with air quotes, had some very, very big business-friendly tax policies, and a lot of companies set up head offices there for tax purposes, and subsequently there was a lot of hiring, especially around the what they call IT, what we would call computer science, database stuff, that sort of thing, white collar desk job type stuff. But I don't know if that's still the case. Have those companies stayed there? Are those jobs still there or no?
Can you
So
still
that's
move to
also-
Slough?
That's
That
also
was
the
the Republic, not
Republic of Ireland,
Northern.
yeah.
That was the Republic? Okay. All right. So
and
that
I
was
believe
not
that-
Northern Ireland.
That policy is still in place, but it's been pared back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if you remember back in 2008 when the world was going to hell, what was the acronym? PIGS or something? Portugal, Italy, Ireland, and Greece.
Greece. Don't forget
Oh.
about Greece.
Yeah.
And Spain.
And Spain, sorry. So they were all in pretty bad economic straits, and part of that.
And that was how the Republic tried to get out of that?
No. That was the Republic was already using that policy at the time, so they weren't getting a lot of tax dollars. They're basically a tax shelter, right?
I see. And so they pare back on it because it's expensive and it's not netting the gains they wanted?
That's my understanding.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I
Plus
think
the
that
EU's
Kayla's...
put a lot of pressure on them about it.
I think Kayla's comparison to Hamilton is really apt because it did. It felt like what used to be a very industrial town. There seemed to be a lot of focus on the tourist industry there now. But obviously, I mean, like with the shipyards and stuff like that, there definitely used to be a huge industrial base.
And I think
when
that's what kind of reminds me of Hamilton was you're right on the harbor, just like Ireland is right on a harbor, and you have a lot of that shipping industry, you have a lot of that manufacturing industry, and so you have people who are tied to your core, so you're downtown. And what I found really interesting is the way that Belfast has kind of changed over I'm probably the last seven years. So the first time I visited Belfast was in 2010, and I stayed in Belfast. Anya was living there at the time, and I was staying with her. And I would go out during the day because Anya was working, and I would just stroll around the city. And I saw a lot of the similar things that I was seeing in Hamilton at the time, which was a lot of businesses, but a lot of areas of the city that were kind of boarded up and locked down and not thriving. And
how does that compare to what you saw on this trip?
it was different. I definitely think, and maybe it's partially because we were in different parts of the city, but I was seeing more and newer things that had opened up.
So it felt to you like it was getting better.
I don't know that better's the term. I would say it was different. I saw
Different.
more. I saw more shops. I saw more.
There's a lot of construction, like a lot of renewal
Yeah.
was
A
happening.
lot of stuff being built for sure. Steph and I took the city airport when we left Belfast for the next stage of our trip, and we got a cab to the airport. I think it was a cab, maybe it was an Uber, I forget. And it was driven by this old guy. He was in his 60s, and he starts telling us all these stories. And we, of course, were driving past the shipyards, and he asked about the Titanic Museum. Everybody I met in Belfast asked what I thought about the Titanic Museum, but this old guy was telling us stories about growing up, and he was the youngest in his family, and all of his older siblings and his dad and his dad's dad and his uncles and everybody all worked at the shipyards apparently when he was a kid, and he sold newspapers or food or something to the ship workers, and he talked about just this ocean of people, just thousands and thousands of people, all who lived in and around the shipyard and who walked to work every day. And it kind of made me think over the course of this old timer's life. I mean, he was, like I said, in his 60s or something. So over the past 50 years, the shift that would be to that city, to the literally, I think at its height, tens of thousands of people employed in that one place near these docks, to now where there's significantly less. And I mean, that stresses any city in any country. That's massive.
Yeah, just ask Detroit.
Yeah, I was thinking
No
the same
shit,
thing.
eh? No shit. But
Yeah, I
overall-
think if I remember correctly, the museum said it was topped out at 40,000 people employed at the shipyards themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the trickle-down effect on the economy, and as the shipyards disappeared, would just be insane.
That's quite the museum. And like I said, everybody in Belfast wanted to know if you'd been, and then subsequently wanted to know what you thought about it.
So
There
what
was
did you think?
Rail ride.
Yeah, I mean, have you guys all been? I know.
Yep.
Yeah. It's I don't think I've been to another museum that's quite like that. This is the Titanic Museum, by the way, for anyone. I don't know if we said that. They built this great big museum building, and they filled it, and
Ironically, it looks like an iceberg, or maybe unironically, it looks like an iceberg.
yeah, a little bit. I think they said that it's meant to look like the bow of the ship, but I could see iceberg
Sure.
more than the ship. Nah, I'm with you. I agree. But it was a really, really well done museum, really well curated museum, and there was lots of really interesting things. I liked how it started by establishing the context of Belfast as an industrial city, and as, you know, what the city was about, and what the products were, and where the shipyards came from, and then went into building the ship, and then obviously the disaster, and then had a piece toward the end of finding the ship as well. And it was a really great museum. We spent like a whole half a day there, I think.
Yep. It was really good because they had a tender that was built for the Titanic, so you kind of got to see what the Titanic was like, because this ship would have brought passengers to the Titanic.
Right,
And
so it was
that
built at the same time as the Titanic, or around the same period anyway.
Yeah, and the interior space was fitted out of what it would have been like in second class. So you kind of got to see what it was like on the ship. And they also had a rail portion where you got in and it kind of took you around like on a swing stage almost through the Titanic's construction. And that was
That part was
interesting.
really neat.
Have not seen anything like that in a museum before. But it was really cool just because the museum itself, like John said, was basically as much about the shipyards and Belfast as the Titanic itself. Because when you just take a collection of... I've been to the Princess of Ireland, I believe it was called. It was a shipwreck that happened just before the Titanic, close to Canadian shore, and it was the biggest one in Canadian waters. Something like 1,700 people died. But then the Titanic happened a couple days later, and it completely overshadowed the Princess of Ireland's news. But they had a large exhibition when I was there, or when I was in Ottawa, walking through, and a lot of it was unfortunately just like this is a chair from the deck, and this is some
yeah.
silverware, and this is all this other stuff that was just collected, and it doesn't tell you the story, whereas the Titanic Museum itself was more of a museum of a story, which I thought was great.
And I really like how they picked out key figures that were important to the building of the Titanic and also the sailing of the Titanic. And those
did you see
perished.
that one story about that stewardess? There was a stewardess who was on the Titanic who survived and then subsequently went on to serve on another couple of White Star liners. She was in 3 different shipwrecks throughout her life. She's like the least lucky stewardess that ever did transatlantic crossings. And I think they know her name, but they really don't know much about her because, of course, there was no good employment records kept. So
She's been cursed by someone, and
I guess.
You would figure after number 2, you might want to rethink your career choice.
I'm not sure that anyone had a career choice, though, to some extent. Like the one of the major takeaways that I got coming away from the Titanic Museum was that literally every job in that period of time was terrible. Like whether you were the guy who shoveled coal all day and that's what you did when the Titanic was crossing the ocean. You just shoveled coal. Well, apparently some of the coal was on fire that you were shoveling. Or you were back in the shipyard, the guy who was hammering rivets into the side of the ship hull and literally going deaf as you shoved into small spaces, and they were throwing rivets, and there's a guy whose job it is to catch hot rivets and shove them in holes. Like every single job involved in the making of this ship and the sailing of this ship was a terrible job to have.
And yet such a vital part of the economy because...
Well, and later on... Steph and I were in London, and we were looking at a museum that was about subways, and all the jobs related to making subways were terrible too. So as far as I could tell, it's just all the Industrial Revolution jobs were awful.
Well,
I think is the thing.
We've all been to the Grand Canyon, but did you ever stop at the Hoover Dam and look at the museum or the little things that they got there? Same thing, right? Like a number of people who died, and they were just like, well, it's the Depression. Someone else will take his place.
I guess that guy's not here anymore. Yeah. No, those jobs were awful jobs. Just bad jobs.
Sorry, Kayla, you were in the middle of a sentence there.
Oh, I think it was more just looking at the economic depression like you were talking about, and especially in areas that are driven by manual labor like Belfast. And so for the residents of Belfast, how necessary it was for those people to be able to work for shipyards like Harland and Wolff to at least be able to work. Otherwise, there were no other options.
Mm-hmm. Something that I thought was really cool about the UK in general, I suppose. Steph and I went to both Belfast and Northern Ireland, as well as then down on to London. The one of the things that I noticed that was really cool was the quality of public transportation options that exist. The one day when we were going out to what's the name of the suit hire place? We gotta promote them.
Debonair
Suit Hire. We took a bus, and the bus is really good, even though it's going out to a little town in the middle of fucking nowhere. But it was on time, it was prompt, and it was reasonably priced, and it was a nice bus. It had like Wi-Fi and phone chargers and shit on this bus. Like, we don't have anything approaching the quality of that public transit here.
The buses were nicer than the plane John and I took over. It was from the night. It's like Air Canada rescued this stupid plane from the desert. The thing was like built in the 1990s. The carpet was peeling up. The chairs didn't have like cushions on them. You're trying to sleep.
We got rouged. It was awful. Don't ever fly Air Canada Rouge, especially not on a cross-Atlantic trip. It was awful.
Gosh. That was brutal.
Yeah, but the buses were nice. When we got to Ireland, the buses were really nice. And like super on time and everything. It was really impressive. It was like, it felt, and they had a train too, although we didn't use the train in Ireland, but it felt like you could easily live in a small town outside of a larger city and be able to go to the larger city without too much of a hassle, like on a Saturday or whatever. And you can't say that for pretty much anywhere in Canada.
Well, you have to be able to, otherwise no one would be able to there wouldn't be enough people to work.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose.
And I think like you're thinking of those parts of Ireland as in the middle of nowhere because really anything an hour away from us is considered far away. But for smaller areas of land, because I mean, you can fit all of Ireland into Algonquin Park.
Right.
I think when you have a smaller land mass, you have to build out your transportation options to make it possible for people from the what we would consider rural areas to be able to access the amenities and services of the bigger cities.
That makes sense too. Yeah.
And
I
to
guess
put it in perspective, I mean, I was talking with one of Anya's uncles while we were there, and they were mentioning that they just finished off a new motorway, and you can now drive basically the length of the entire island in just a couple of hours. So, I mean, you can drive literally the entire country in a shorter time than it would take you to get halfway to Ottawa. So, from where we are.
Yeah.
It's like that for a lot of European countries. It's less time to go through European countries than it is just to drive outside of Ontario. That's like the bigger ones, like Germany and France.
So
Well,
really,
and
if you
aside-
think of it, getting from Belfast to like where we were in the north of Ireland by bus is about an hour. Takes you that long to get from one end to Waterloo to the south end of Cambridge. So
Yeah, that's true.
By
That's
bus,
true.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely. No question. Yeah.
And I think there is an express.
yeah,
Soon there'll be a train.
It's called the Express with an I.
Yeah, and I mean, driving around Ireland or busing around Ireland, regardless, it really is a beautiful, beautiful country. I mean, you could joke about it all day long, but it is picturesque, man. It's gorgeous. I mean, in some ways, it reminds you of here, the rolling hills and the farms and stuff. But in other ways, the hills are more extremes. The farm fields are smaller. Everything's got a hedge all over the place. There's all the sheep. Like it's gorgeous, and everything's really old.
Everyone farms grass. That's amazing.
For some reason,
I mean,
yeah.
It's a cliche, but it's a very green country. And
Yeah,
when
it's
you
beautiful.
say that, you in your mind you picture like, okay, Ontario green or whatever, but it's not. It's like a completely different, vibrant color.
No, it's like they never got the memo about like big factory farms. Like I'm not sure that anyone
Or-
owns a combine. You know what I mean? Like because all the fields you could walk around every field. Like it's
Well, they
small,
probably do equipment shares and stuff like that, I imagine.
possibly. And like
Because
you said,
if you
Derek,
have
I mean
a-
everyone's got
if-
grass. There's a lot of husbandry going on, less crops.
Yeah. I saw very few cash crops there, which was very surprising.
although I was very intrigued, the fields of yellow that I was seeing, I was glad that someone finally pointed out that it was rapeseed that they were
Oh, is that what that is?
farming. Yeah,
Oh, there
You
you
make
go. Good old
oil
canola.
out of that, don't you? Vegetable
yeah,
oil?
rapeseed oil.
Canola.
No, there is rapeseed as well.
We don't
It's the
use the R word anymore.
It's the same thing. They rebranded it so that it would sell well. Yeah.
Because they didn't want to sell rapeseed oil.
Didn't we do a story on the
Yes.
pod about? I thought there was a town out in Manitoba or something that was called like Rape Manitoba, and they were rebranding. I'm sure we talked about this on the podcast like a year
I think
ago.
it was a province
Canola.
over, and I think it was their slogan, "The Land of Rape and Honey."
Oh, I do remember that.
And everyone in the town was all like, "No, it means canola," and everyone else was like, "Yeah, I mean, sure, but you're being pedantic."
There you go. In the 1970s, the Rapeseed Association of Canada chose the name canola to represent can for Canada and ola for oil.
Are you serious? So hang on, canola is a Canadian thing? Like, if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
ask someone else for canola oil, they'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking
Yeah.
about?"
Yeah, they'd be like, what
I
do you
had
mean?
no idea.
And that's
Wow.
why the rest of the world is fine with rapeseed.
Is that? So in the States, they call it rapeseed oil?
I think we actually export it, and it's like a premium thing.
No shit.
Actually,
I had
the
no
European Union-
idea.
There you go. The European Union produces more than we do.
And what do they call it in the European Union?
Apparently, canola was originally, it's a trademark. So
Oh, so it's not canola then. Wow, I did not know that was a trademarked thing.
yeah,
That's
there you
something
go.
else.
One dictionary purports that it stands for Canada oil plus low acid, which I don't think is true at all.
Can you imagine like the days and days of meetings that went into picking that damn name though? Oh,
I don't know.
maddening.
Pretty much anything was going to be better than the original.
Rape oil. That's awesome. So, we're getting towards the end of the show. We talked a lot about Belfast. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, in addition to pimping Debonair Suit for Hire, if we didn't talk a little bit about the fucking Disney castle that you had your wedding reception at.
Holy shit.
It was, wow. Okay, what was it called? Castle Leslie, right?
Yes.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes, but you can Google it. They have a page. You can check it out.
It's
the
like
thing, though.
Fantasyland for people who have a fuck ton of money.
Who wants to spend a day in the
On my
country?
toilet. It was amazing.
Oh, the toilet was awesome. I had like an old crapper, and it
Yeah.
it
was a
said
Thomas
crapper on
Crapper,
it.
John. It was literally
And,
Thomas Crapper. Mine had his portrait in the bowl. So I literally crapped on Thomas Crapper.
One of you guys had the room that had the oldest running, indoor plumbed toilet in all of the country.
That's something else. Our toilet
It may
came
have
with a
been
little,
mine.
like a
Mine had, like,
little,
marble.
we had a little poem on our toilet that was talking about like how old it is, but it's still reliable, and it has a pull flush. You have to pull a chain from the ceiling, and there's this great big copper tank, and it's not like good on water or anything. It just flushes with 50 liters of water.
Okay, it's
It
next to
was-
a lake.
Yeah, it was something else, man. This place was crazy. It was, Tyler, you said that it wasn't authentic, whatever that means. Like somebody built it maybe
Yeah, so
100
it's-
years ago, but they built it to look like it was 500 years old, right?
Yeah, I don't know how old it actually is, but it's not a true castle, but it's
Right.
someone who in the family had a lot of money and decided to build an estate and live audaciously, whatever. And yeah, through the years, it's just been passed down from generation to generation. And actually, the latest heir just passed away this last year. But when we were there originally, we actually saw him. He was like in his 90s or something, walking through, and it's unfortunate actually that he passed away when he did, because apparently he's been known to kind of crash wedding parties and just come party with the guests and
That's
have a good
adorable.
time. So
That's
But-
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, so this place, I mean, we walked into this place, and first of all, it's got like a rich guy driveway. Like if you think of rich guy driveway in a movie, like there's like, a gravel courtyard and a turning around spot and like a marble fountain in the middle and like these giant doors that are 8 feet tall. Like it's a rich guy driveway. And then we went in and everybody got their own room, and every room is different too. So our room was called Shane's room. It's got a skeleton key, and you go in, and it's got a really old toilet and a closet, and then there's a bathtub, a clawfoot bathtub that's like in the bedroom. Like, it's right beside the bed. There's a clawfoot bathtub there, and there's art all over the place. What were your guys' rooms like?
Jake
Mine was
and I-
about the same as yours.
But did yours have like a theme or named after a member of the family?
Yeah, it was Papa Joe's room, who I learned was an inept military drill captain who would sometimes accidentally train the IRA.
Oops.
He was a drunk, and he was known for telling stories, and he'd keep guests entertained for hours around the dinner table.
That's something else.
Jake and I stayed in Aggie's room, and Aggie's room is named after Agnes Burnell, who was Desmond Leslie's first wife, and she was a operative. She was a secret agent during the war, and she was
Cool.
also a cabaret star and a star of the silver screen. She had a lot of different hats throughout her life. So our entire room was made up to look like the dressing room of Agnes Burnell. And
Oh,
so
that's neat.
the bathroom was plastered with playbills. Where our bathtub was had a curtain, like a stage curtain that you could draw so that the curtains would fall and cover, make a covering between where the tub was and where the rest of the bedroom was.
That's
and then
neat.
the sitting area had a mirror that was made up like a dressing room mirror.
Did you guys have a church pew in your room? We had a church pew in our room.
No.
no,
Yeah, it was like a kneeler thing, like where you might kneel to do your prayers.
So what was
Wow.
the story behind your room, John?
It was Shane's room, and as I understand it, Shane was, I think, the youngest member of the family thing. It might have been the old guy you were talking about, Ty. It might have been Shane. I'm not 100%. But he was Shane Leslie was his name. And I don't know what his story was, but the room itself was really opulent with all like big curtainy things over the bed and the really old toilet. And we had a bathtub, a clawfoot bathtub with curtains on it as well. And yeah, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts.
If you go to their website, you can look at each of the rooms and you can get the whole history on the room. For Shane's room, it talks about Shane, born John, the eldest of the Leslie sons, blah, blah, blah. But there's a bit halfway through it says, when deafness came in old age, the family presented him with the latest in electronic hearing aids. He hurled them away in rage, saying, "They can hear me, I just choose not to hear them."
That's the kind of curmudgeon I want to be, man. That's amazing. Yeah, so aside from the rooms, I mean, this place was like, the carpet was like an inch thick, and like there were paintings everywhere. Like walking up the staircase to the rooms was like walking up the staircase in Hogwarts. Like it was just crazy, man. It was nuts. And the food. Oh, the tea. That's the other thing, man. When we came in before the wedding reception began, they were serving tea, and I think it's the best tea I've ever had in my life, which shouldn't surprise me, I suppose. But it was way better than any tea I've had in Canada, and I don't know what kind of tea it was.
So, what room were you in, Tyler? Like, I have to imagine, like, honeymoon suite, this, like, fancy estate room. Like, what of the digs did you guys get?
So they have 5 what they call master bedrooms. So we obviously had our pick. We chose what's called the Eagle's Nest, which is one of the rooms at the very top that has just an incredible view of the courtyard and the lake. It's got its own balcony.
The grounds.
So, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a sort of like 3 rooms. You've got the bedroom that has like a fireplace and a sitting area. You've got kind of like, it's almost like a sunroom sort of that leads out to the balcony, but that has the big copper tub. And then to the side,
Wait, the copper tub was on the balcony?
It was right next to it.
Oh, that's cool.
So Castle Leslie has videos of the different rooms. So I'm watching the Eagle's Nest room video. So I imagine that the other parents had the other master bedrooms and the other members of the party, the wedding party.
Exactly.
Cool. This place is pretty extravagant. Like,
yeah, I mean, like you can go there and you can take your horse and like they've got, all kinds of equestrian stuff that you can do. You can shoot pigeons or clay pigeons or hunt on the grounds. Or
did anyone find the billiards room or the movie theater?
No, I didn't find that.
I walked by the movie theater, but the door was closed, and I didn't want to just like bust in because it's more or less like right when you come into the main.
Oh, is that where it was?
Foyer area.
So that's the door to it, but so when you go in there's a hallway and there's stairs that go up and down.
Oh.
And so like there's a whole set of other rooms out there.
Speaking of that main area, did anyone else go into the men's room off of that main foyer? It's great.
That was incredible.
It's like covered with knickknacks and shit all over the walls, but they've got, I think it's 4 urinals in there, and they're labeled large, medium, tiny, and liar.
Yeah, I think it was a railway theme in there.
Yeah, it was a railway theme. Yeah, it was nuts.
And they had all the I guess the equipment you need to go horse riding or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
I was reading about weekend getaways, and the one thing that Castle Leslie totes is that you can bring not only your horse, but you can bring your dog with you. And they have hosted, you stay at the Muse. I guess that's another property on the estate. So they have the lodge, they have the castle itself, and then they have the Muse at Castle Leslie. And you can bring your dog and your horse, and they have clay pigeon shooting. And you can more or less do what I imagine fancy rich people do on the weekend with their high tea and their equestrian center, which is renowned for how many options there are for boarding your horse and as well as areas that you can take your horse within the castle itself.
the morning after the wedding reception, Steph and I stumbled downstairs and had like an extravagant breakfast, like emphasis on extravagant. And then we went outside and we just kind of stumbled around the grounds, and the grounds are just gorgeous. Like, I mean, it's like the nicest park you've ever been to. And we just walked around and through the gardens and the trees, and Steph took pictures of all kinds of stuff, and there's crazy birds all over the place. It was
Did you
crazy.
go over to buy the garlic?
We did, yes. There's wild garlic, and then we found a spot where there's like a plane carcass somewhere too. And yeah, it was
Did you go
giant
into
steel
that
gates.
that church that was over there?
We didn't go
was
inside the
closed.
church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever make it over to the lodge, like the separate building?
No.
No.
So in there, they've got a whole. It's basically another hotel. The lodge rooms, we stayed there once. They're, I mean, again, very nice rooms. Obviously not as big as the castle rooms, but they've got like just a nice bedroom, and the bathroom has like a huge walk-in shower. Like it's like the size of a room, the shower. And then so there's the whole hotel section there. They've got the restaurant, like I said, which is multiple layers, so 2 floors, I think, of restaurant. And then on the 3rd floor, they've actually got like a whole spa thing going on up there too. So this place is just full of random stuff everywhere.
I would love to go there and spend a weekend there, but I think I'm gonna have to wait for like, our 10-year anniversary or something, because it's pretty expensive to fly to a different part of the world to go to a fancy hotel. But holy shit, that place was amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys had fun.
It would be like if you want to go somewhere else in Europe, right? You basically would fly there. You do your trip there, and then coming back, you stop like in Dublin, go to Castle Leslie, have a nice decompression weekend. Would be
I think
really
so.
nice.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So I'd like to go back there. That place was really, really neat. It was a beautiful place. I've never been anywhere quite like it.
I will say, from our perspective, we missed a lot of the stuff as we were running around doing pictures and whatever else there. But the staff,
the staff is like
so
you
attentive.
imagine the staff should be at like the nicest restaurant ever. Not in the sense that they're snooty, because they're not. They're invisible, and they're just there for everything you need.
Yeah, but like exactly, and they're. So like when we were out there, they were bringing us like food and drinks and champagne and holding umbrellas. Like they would just like randomly, you just turn around and they're there, and they have like the
they're
thing
just
you
a
need.
Drelbo, and they have exactly what you need. They've anticipated your desires. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was incredible.
Kelly, you're right. I assume that that's the way that people who have like sailboats and wear khakis every day just live. But for people like us, man, it was something else to see that.
Quite possibly the fanciest place that I will ever stay, because I mean, it was an occasion, and extravagant doesn't even begin to like cover how I felt about that whole. And I think what really, I don't want to say surprised me, but the following morning, so I went for a walk around the building again the following morning, and the areas that had been transformed for dance floors and for eating areas had been moved back into their regular day-to-day use and became sitting rooms again. And I was like, how did you do this overnight? Like, I went to bed
3 a.m, somebody silently transformed the whole house. Yeah.
I can assure you, it wasn't 3 a.m. because we were up until about 5.
Although I think they'd already gotten the dining room at that point, right?
Yeah, because
But again,
everybody
I didn't see
retired
them
to, like, the
actually
sitting
move
room.
anything. It was
Yeah.
probably
That's-
when they had enough people that were out of the room.
So even that's an interesting point, though, Jake, because the tables that we had for the dinner there in the dining room, the first time we toured this place, that room was empty.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where you fit tables that are that long, because I think
Yeah.
it's one solid piece, right? Or maybe am I just?
But I think this is the thing about Castle Leslie, right? Is it's part really fancy restaurant, part amazing hotel, but along with those come a level of wait staff and service that is beyond anything you've ever experienced at, even the fanciest of restaurants you've eaten at. It's certainly well beyond like any hotel you've ever been to before too, right? So there's I guess what I'm trying to say is like, at a fancy restaurant, there's a level of professionalism in the wait staff that you wouldn't see at an Eastside Mario's. Just like at this place, there is a level of professionalism in the staff at Castle Leslie that you would, the people at, the nicest Holiday Inn in the world don't even come anywhere close to it. There's a level of thing that they're doing that's well beyond anything you've ever seen before. That's what they do properly.
I really liked talking to everyone the following morning and hearing how many of us had 3 a.m. baths.
Yep. Loads of people did. Steph did, for sure.
I was back at the room before Jake was, and I was like, this bathtub is so beautiful. And they have thought of everything from the most beautiful teapot I've ever seen with matching cups and saucers and bath salts, shampoo products. I was like, I can't not use this bathtub, and I don't care that it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, Steph had a bath at 2:30 or 2:45 whenever we retired, and then talked me into taking a dip as well. It was pretty cool. It was beautiful. What a neat place. So good work, Ty. What a neat place.
Well, had to make sure that the trip over was worth it. So
good luck, Derek and Christina, on your upcoming nuptials.
Oh,
it's
dick
not
move.
a competition.
I'm not even going to try and compete with that.
No, you can't.
The other question is, do you guys want me to try and compete with that?
I thought there was going to be a tank.
Can you afford?
We're all going camping for Derek's.
Hey, that'd be good for me.
That would be awesome.
Actually, you know what? I would enjoy that. That'd be great. Derek, let's go camping for your wedding.
If you guys want, we could probably set up tents at the lodge.
Well, let's think about that.
I can't stop watching videos of the different rooms in this place.
Yeah, anyone who's
So I will
listening,
say-
you guys got to see it. It's cool.
I will say the hardest thing, because we bore the responsibility of assigning rooms to everyone, and we had to take into account a whole bunch of different things, like some people who are older couldn't necessarily have rooms that are on higher floors or whatever, right? Some people, some of the rooms actually have 2 different beds or whatever, so we didn't want to split up couples necessarily like that. It might look a little bad. So anyway, it was really difficult to go through. And then obviously the rooms that you're left with to give to people, you're like, okay, let's find something that we think fits everyone's personality a little bit here and there. So it was, anyway, I'm glad to hear that it worked out all right.
You guys did a really good job. It was cool. Is there anything else that we need to say about our trip to Ireland? I think we could pick up with what we did in the rest of the UK in our next episode. But it's about time to wrap up this one.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
We good?
Oh, thank God, because I really have to take a leak. Right
Way to keep it classy, Derek. Way to keep it classy. All right, well, look, thanks for joining us on Slightly Sauced Travelogue Edition. I hope you enjoyed our discussion of our trip to Northern Ireland. And if you hate this shit, you should probably skip a couple episodes before you listen to another one, because we're going to talk about other places in the UK next one, I think, at least. And then we'll get back to the normal content. I was going to say normal scheduled content, but there's no schedule of any kind. It'll be out when it's out, and you'll be happy with it.
On the flip side, though, if you like hearing people who are completely out of their depth talking about other countries in stereotypical ways, you should tune in, because that's definitely what's going to happen on the next episode.
That's exactly what we're doing. Definitely talking about the politics and economies of countries we don't live in or understand.
There you go.
That's our deal. That's what Slightly Sauced is from here on out. Thanks for listening and stuff. If you want to send us an email, you can send it to contact@slightlysauced.com. And, of course, the show's available iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, all the places where you get podcasts and stuff. Anything else we got to say? All right.
See you next time.
Later.